9:10 a.m. your superstation. We have been talking about the elections here in Michigan and how things are heating up. Obviously, Kamala Harris was here yesterday on the west side of Detroit, but also Ronna McDaniel, the RNC chairwoman, was also in town yesterday. They were doing a bus tour. And also, someone who's at that same bus tour stop in Detroit, someone I think I want my listeners to get used to and hear more about, is the opponent of Rashida Talib in the 13th Congressional District. Now, the media let them tell it there is no competition, there is no opponent, and they've tried their best to kind of not shine the light on this opponent of hers. And now I want to always disclose this opponent, David Dudenhoefer, is also a client of mine and someone I work with, but also someone I consider a friend, someone I've known for a long time. He's the 13th District Chairman, and I want to welcome to the show right now David Dudenhoefer. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Wayne. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure to do so. I want to kind of let the folks know, again, this is all about knowing all your options, knowing your research, and David Dudenhoefer, again, is running against Rashida Talib in the 13th District. And, David, I would like for you kind of just to give folks a little bit of your background, and we'll go through it more, but explain to the folks who are listening, this is the first time they might have ever heard of David Dudenhoefer. Give them a little background on yourself, sir.
Sure. So I came into politics or the political scene back in 2007, and it was during the presidential election season, and I had heard a very simple message that just kind of resonated with me, and it got me up off the couch, turned me from a don't care into a care. And, I got involved, started working, met a lot of folks along the way. And, after the presidential election, I decided I wanted to stay involved and stay active. And so many of us got involved. We decided to become precinct delegates. We had heard that if you become a delegate, you can expect change from the inside of the political party, affecting the dialogue, affecting the conversation and the direction. And so many of us did that. And over the years, I started to learn about effective forms of activism, which goes beyond sign waving and, protesting and shouting. I became a legislative activist, which means I learned civics, which I didn't learn in high school, which we should all be learning. I taught myself how the process works, how the bill process works. And I started learning the ins and outs of the legislative process. From there, I started traveling the state, leading an organization called Michigan Campaign for Liberty, where we empowered citizens and taught the skills of how to hold local governments accountable. So organizing in the community, teaching them the skills that I had learned. And we had small pockets of victories, whether it was a tax millage, whether it was, red light cameras. I remember that back a few years ago where they were targeting urban communities. And so, we had some successes there. Around about 2013, I was probably one of the few that came in 2007 that actually stuck around the party. Just a glutton for punishment. But they elected me chair of the district, and we just brought a fresh new attitude. We just decided that we needed to open this thing up. It was just, the same folks doing the same thing, maybe just out of habit. Over the years, the Republican Party had just let Wayne County go, and specifically the city of Detroit, Inkster, Romulus, Highland Park, all of these areas, and they just abandoned it. And I said, no more. I'm going to reconnect with the community, do my best to figure out how we can reconnect based on issues, not political parties, not, personalities, people running for office, but issues. Like criminal justice reform, like fixing the healthcare system, like schools and, better higher education pathways, making it easier for people of all backgrounds to get that higher education. May not be college, could be apprenticeships, could be trade school, but creating those pathways. So we just stuck around. I stuck with it. And so this year came around, and I wasn't going to do this initially. But everybody that stepped up in the Republican Party, what they led with was attacking Rashida's religion. And I didn't want to go down that road because not only does it paint her to be a victim, it's wrong. And if we attack her religion, they're going to attack ours. So I took a look at her socialism, and I says, this is divisive. It sounds all warm and fuzzy, free stuff, right? But I think your parents taught you and my parents taught me there's nothing free in life. And anybody in politics that tells you they can do something for you for free, you should run away from them as fast as you can. So I thought, let's stick with that message. And I have always championed the message of freedom, individual liberty, personal freedom, personal responsibility, getting government off our back, making it work for us within the confines of our Constitution the way they're supposed to. And so that's the message I've led with. And I'm happy to say I've garnered a lot of support. More people that are learning about me are saying, hey, I've never heard of you, but you know what? I like what you're saying, and you're being honest about it. So, hey, I think you're earning my support. And, of course, nationwide, donations have been just flying in, not so much necessarily just because of me, but because of her message. So.
Exactly. And let me disclose once again, every 5 minutes, I am working with David Dudenhoefer. I am lucky to be working with David Dudenhoefer, but I wanted to make sure I fully disclose that on the air while you're on the air. Let's go to the next thing. As you're looking at the way Rashida Talib has, I guess we can call it legislating here, what do you think would be the key differences between the way you approach if you were elected to be the congressman of the 13th district? What do you think would be the key differences in how you approach legislating compared to what Rashida Talib has done?
So I come from the principle and the foundation that government's primary objective is to secure our God-given rights. Okay, not the rights that people tell you about that, requires government to steal from your neighbor to give to somebody else. All right, but your God-given rights, your right to live, your right to breathe, your right to dream, your right to pursue happiness, your right to pursue ownership of a business, what have you, okay? Those are our rights, and it doesn't require anything from anybody else. These are yours, okay? And so as a legislator, our job is to defend the freedom of the individual, regardless of background, and apply the law equally to every individual, staying within the confines of those 18 enumerated privileges that we, the people, granted the federal government. Now, that's my foundation, all right? So building from that and distinguishing myself and my approach from Rashida's approach is that she is targeting people. She is pursuing legislative solutions while targeting social groups, and it kind of falls within the realm of identity politics. But what we find is that she's pitting people against each other through targeted policies instead of applying the law equally to everybody's benefit. And that is the single most distinction between our two approaches.
Well, I mean, what do you think when you hear her talking about defund the police? I mean, I've heard Chief Craig talk a lot about that, and I know he feels very strongly disagrees with her. What do you think about when you hear her talking about defund the police when she has probably one of the tougher districts in the country in terms of crime, and how in touch is she really with her with her district when she's saying stuff like that?
Yeah, well, what's more important, less important, what I think is more important what the people think. And when I talk to people, by and large, they are not on board with any sort of nonsense of defunding, ending, reducing the police in any way, shape, or form. What they want are the same things that the chief has talked about, sensible reforms. Okay? So, we can talk about some of the issues with some of the officers, but that's a far cry from the job that most of our officers do. And let's face it, these people that call for defunding the police have never been on a crime scene. They've never witnessed what some of these officers have had to witness. So I would say, de-escalation tactics, mental and emotional support for our officers for the things that they're having to deal with on a daily basis. I'm not somebody for, no-knock warrants, stop and frisk, and some of these other policies. When in the legislature, I was stopping them from trying to use drones to, spy on folks. I mean, there was all kinds of nonsense these folks wanted to spend money on. However, that being said, we still have to have police on our streets. And I think if you want to look at successes, take a look at the NPO program that Chief Craig had implemented some 10 years ago and what that's done. I mean, I have the cell phone to my neighborhood patrol officer. I know many of my folks that, live in the community. They do as well. And that's made a difference. But this whole idea of defunding is ridiculous on its face. And then on top of it, when you add into the mix that she's part of this crowd that would like to disarm our citizens. I mean, can you imagine being a single mom at home and you have no ability to defend yourself or your child? And there's somebody trying to break in your house.
She wants to defund the police and take away your guns.
Exactly.
That's a pretty scary way of looking at things. What are some of your key and core issues that you want to tackle if elected to Congress and as they're talking out here in the community? What are some of those issues?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to establish is that I would be one of 435 votes. All right. So I cannot make wild promises, and I'm not going to do that about all the plans or the things I'm going to do because, first of all, the reality is you got 2 years. Now, I've already told you about the foundation that I have. What I can promise is that I am never going to vote for a bill that I have not had an opportunity to read. I'm never going to vote for a bill based on a title. I'm never going to vote for a bill that steals from your neighbor to give to somebody else, all right? But what I would like to focus on are some areas. First of all, the foundation that I build off of is faith and family. We have to have a mother and a father in our homes, and we have to have strong faith and a strong moral compass as a community. So we have to start there. And then from there, we have to take a look at, things like what is going to progress as a person, as an individual. How are we going to achieve the things that we want to achieve? And obviously education is at the forefront of that. We have to have better access to better forms of higher education and simpler ways to do that. And I think right now what we're finding is the banks are just profiting off of people enrolling in school and not really coming out with the skills that they need to succeed. So I think, education, training for the jobs for the future involving, STEM programs, coding programs, trade schools. College might not be for everybody.
Right.
Supporting school choice for parents. I think that's key right there. And incentives for more efficiency in our public schools. I just believe that quality public schools are essential for the 13th district and all of the constituents that I would be representing. So those areas in education. Obviously, criminal justice reform, police reform, and public safety are also areas that I would be looking at. I think there's a lot of things that need to be done locally, but as a federal representative, I can certainly support those systems and those changes. There's more information on my website in detail. I don't want to go in too deep in the weeds on a phone call here, but folks can go to www.dudeforcongress.com to find out more. But you're just finishing this up. I think jobs, obviously we're always hearing about jobs, right? But what about long-term careers? What about training for those long-term careers that people will be with all of their lives and not just some job that pays you a little bit and gets you by? People are sick of that, and they're sick of hearing that from politicians. So I think providing more access to small business loans for minority business owners, I think that's essential as well. And I think we've got so many minority business owners in the district, and they deserve an opportunity to grow. And with growth means that they can hire more. So these all translate into positives for the community, and those are the things I would be focusing on.
All right, one more disclaimer. I am working with the David Dudenhoefer campaign. This is not only a client of mine, he's a friend of mine, so I want to keep that disclosure and full transparency. Dave, what area do you live in the district, just so people know exactly where you're coming from? Where do you live?
Yeah, I live in the Boston-Edison Historical District right now, but I've resided in the city of Detroit since 1996. I started off in southwest Detroit. I moved to East English Village, downtown. I lived there for a time. In the Cass Corridor, I lived there just prior to this move with my wife. We just married a few years ago and expecting our first child. Ironically, the week of elections, the doc says it could be election night. So we're proud to be here. We're proud to be residents of the city, and we're going to raise our family here, and we work here. I've been in the private sector my whole life, so I'm not getting paid in politics. Just want to let people know that. The one thing that I want folks to remember is, I well recognize the diversity in this district, and I'm not going to represent everyone's physical traits. So I recognize that. But what I do want to do is represent the ideas that I champion that will benefit people in a positive way. And I think when you get down to it, it's how your representatives are representing you in terms of policy that makes your life easier to live and gives you the opportunity not just to get by, but to thrive. And that's what I want people to do, no matter their background. I want them to thrive in life. And what we find is many of the problems people are facing are due to some past government intrusion or government policy that's hindering them from realizing their dreams. And I just want to be that part of that change that gets rid of those hindrances, and so people can thrive in life.
All right, now one thing we haven't talked about a lot, and I know you personally, we haven't brought up much about the president because I know that's, to me, you're focused on the 13th district. But what do you think when you see how, let's say, the current congresswoman has gotten along with the president and she's made more of a spectacle of herself? How do you feel like your relationship in working with the president would be different here in the 13th district?
Well, I think, first of all, you're spot on with your analysis of Ms. Talib. And I think, Brenda Jones was spot on in her criticisms of Talib, that she's more about making a movie star out of herself or a TV star out of herself than she is about representing the district. And so, we've seen the evidence of that. The difference here with me is that I look at President Trump or any other president. Could have been Barack Obama. It doesn't matter. This is the executive branch. I would be in the legislative branch. There's three branches, the separation of powers, the checks and balances, and I take that role seriously. To me, it's not an either or. It's not either you support the president or you don't. To me, it's you can support somebody when they're doing right, and you reserve the right to be critical of them when they're doing something against their directives in the Constitution, according to the Constitution. And I would be one of those legislators. So I can point to areas where Donald Trump has, got it right, and I can point to areas where he has totally misrepresented folks and gotten it wrong. So the difference is that you got to be willing to work with people from different political philosophies. And that's the only way that you're going to come to some compromises and get things done. But for me, compromise means compromising on some technical aspects of a piece of legislation. What we never compromise on is your freedom and your ability to live your life the way you want, as best as you're not impeding upon your neighbor to do the same, and vice versa. And that would be the primary difference between her approach and mine.
Excellent. Well, David, I appreciate you coming on today. Can you let the folks know one more time before we go here, the website and where they can get more information about you?
Sure. So it's Dude for Congress, which is just short for Dudenhoefer. A little bit of marketing there. People are going to remember the Dude and not so much my last name fully, but it's DUDE, the number 4, Congress.com. Now, we actually have a campaign office as well. That's the first time a Republican's had a campaign office in the district in more than 30 years. We decided to go with the center of the district. That way it would be fair. It would be the most efficient use of the resources that I have, so I'm not wasting the donors' money. But we're in the center of the district in Garden City, although we are campaigning in all 12 communities, door knocking, phone calls, and what have you. Folks can help out that way. They can go on social media. Twitter is Dude for Liberty, and on Facebook it's Dude for Congress.
Thank you so much, David. I'm looking forward to this run over the next 6 weeks, and we'll bring you back on to continue sharing your word with the folks here on 9:10 a.m. in the Superstation. So thank you again for joining us this morning.
Wayne, thanks for the opportunity.
All right, looking forward to it. Talk to you soon. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to take a break on the Wayne Bradley Show. Go pay some bills when we come back. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to do that. I'm sorry, Mr. Positive. But we'll be right back on the Wayne Bradley Show on 9:10 a.m. Your Superstation.
The Wayne Bradley Show.